They said I was the stain on our family's name. They said I ruined it, that I brought shame to what was once honorable. They said I embarrassed the family, and they said it like it was the end of me. But it wasn't. It wasn't failure. It was something bigger, just not visible yet. You know what silence sounds like? It's not quiet. It's loud. It rings in your ears after they stop talking about you, but still look at you like a broken mirror. It sits heavy in your stomach at dinner, between the clink of forks and the clatter of what used to be love. They didn't scream. They didn't curse. They just stopped seeing me. I remember walking into the living room one morning, bare feet, hair a mess, eyes swollen from crying the night before, and no one looked up. Not my father, not my mother, not even Ethan, my younger brother, who once used to sneak candy into my backpack when I was too anxious to eat lunch at school. They just kept scrolling, reading, breathing. And I disappeared. They rewrote my story before I had a chance to live it. I whispered once to my reflection in the bathroom mirror. And I believed it. For a while. But the truth doesn't stay buried. It grows in dark places. It reaches toward cracks in ceilings and whispers into hallways when no one's watching. I thought I had failed. Everyone did. But what none of them knew, what none of them could have known, was that one day, in a room full of important people, the mayor himself would say my name. Say it like it mattered. Say it like it was a name worth remembering. And in that moment, the silence in my house would break. Just a crack, but enough. My name is Danielle Carter. I'm 29 years old. And I live in Oak Haven, Illinois, a quiet town just outside of Chicago, where people know your business before you do. Where names carry weight. And shame sticks like cold grease on a diner plate. My family? Old school. Reputation first. Feelings later, if at all. We weren't rich, but respect ran through our name like a vein. Dad served on the school board. Mom ran the community garden. Ethan was set to graduate with honors in biomedical engineering. And me? I was supposed to be the first lawyer in the family. I was supposed to walk into courtrooms in pencil skirts and heels, stand beside justice, and make the Carter name proud. But life doesn't read your plans. It rewrites them. The day it all cracked began with a phone call. Not the dramatic kind. Not the 2 a.m. life or death kind. Just a call. From the internship office. We've reviewed your application. There were some excellent candidates this year. Unfortunately, click. That was the third rejection in 2 weeks. I remember the moment I sank onto the edge of my bed. The sun filtered in through the half-open blinds, warm but unforgiving. My suit was still hanging on the back of my door, tag still on. Mom had bought it last fall. I didn't cry. Not yet. Crying takes energy. And at that moment I had none. The first time someone said the word embarrassment wasn't to my face. It was behind a closed door. I was walking past my father's office. She just keeps flailing, Karen. It's hard to watch. She's not a child, Mark. She's 25. At what point does she take some real responsibility? I stopped breathing. I was the she. The flailing one. The disappointment. I should have walked away. But something inside me, something small, brittle, stood still and listened. I told everyone she'd be at the city firm by now, my dad continued. Instead, she's back in her childhood bedroom. That's not just sad. There was a pause. A thick, choking pause. Embarrassing. That word stayed with me. I carried it like a second skin. It changed how I walked, how I spoke, how I ate in front of them, carefully, trying not to chew too loudly, trying not to exist too much. The silence grew. Not loud arguments, not slammed doors, just coldness, just small eye rolls, unspoken sighs. The thing is, shame doesn't need an audience. It builds its own stage. And I performed, quietly, perfectly, falling apart while smiling. I started going for long walks at night. There was a bench near Oak Haven's train tracks, far enough from the houses, close enough to the stars. I'd sit there with my jacket zipped up to my chin and headphones in with no music playing. I liked pretending I didn't hear the world. That's where I started writing again. Just scribbles at first. Then outlines. Then ideas. And one night, without thinking too much, I wrote a small proposal for a community tech program. I called it Hands On Tomorrow. The idea? To teach basic computer skills to the elderly in town. Many couldn't video call their grandkids. Some didn't know how to refill prescriptions online. A few didn't even have email. It was small, unpaid, unnoticed. But it was mine.
I didn't tell my parents.
I couldn't bear hearing,
Oh,
"That's nice." Or worse, "Good for you." That one always came with the side eye of dismissal. So I just kept going. One flyer at the library. A few laminated signs at the post office. A Facebook page with 4 followers, 3 of them bots. But then someone showed up. Her name was Helen. She was 82, walked with a cane, and said the internet gave her migraines. "I only came," she said, squinting at me, "because my daughter threatened to stop calling me." I smiled. She didn't. We sat in front of the old desktop at the community center. It took 20 minutes just to open her Gmail. "This machine hates me," she muttered. "It just doesn't know you yet," I said. She looked at me. Really looked. That was the first moment I felt like I existed again. Week by week, more people came. 3. Then 6. Then 12. We upgraded to a donated laptop cart. A high school kid volunteered to help on weekends. The library offered space for free. I started logging hours, tracking lessons, writing small guides. Still no one at home asked where I went every Saturday. No one noticed the binders in my room marked Hot Curriculum. They thought hot was a failed diet plan. I existed, fully, wildly, in the outside world. And yet, inside that house, I was still the stain. Still the embarrassment. Still she. Until the day I wasn't. Until the mayor said my name. But I'm getting ahead of myself. That moment when the lights were too bright and the room too big and the microphone too loud, that moment is coming. And when it came, it wasn't flashy. It wasn't viral. It didn't break the internet or make headlines. But it broke something else. It cracked the silence. Just enough for sound to escape. Just enough for love to try again. That's where this story begins. Not in failure.
not in shame.
But in the quiet corner of a forgotten community center, where an old woman said, "This machine hates me," and I replied, "Let's teach it to love you." Because they said I embarrassed the family. But the mayor? The mayor knew my name. You'd think being the firstborn would come with some grace, some margin for error. But in the Carter family, it came with blueprints. By the time I was 8, I already knew I was supposed to become a lawyer. Not because I loved justice. Not because I staged mock trials with my stuffed animals. But because Uncle Roger was a district judge and Dad always said, "He's the pride of this family." So that was it. My path was printed in ink before I even held the pen. Honor student. Debate captain. Mock trials standout. Straight into pre-law at Northwestern. It looked perfect.
And it was.
On the outside. Inside, I was unraveling. Quietly, but definitely. Law school didn't break me. It just revealed the cracks I had spent years wallpapering over. I didn't hate the work, but I hated how hollow I felt doing it. There were nights I'd sit in the library, books stacked so high they looked like fortress walls, and wonder, when did this become about surviving instead of becoming? I didn't tell anyone, because in my family, exhaustion was weakness. Doubt was disrespect.
And quitting?
Quitting was betrayal. So I didn't quit. Not at first. I started faking. Faking focus. Faking passion. Faking the kind of ambition that people praised in LinkedIn posts. My roommate once found me asleep on the bathroom floor at 3 a.m., bar exam study guide still in my hand. I told her I just needed the tile to stay awake.
She didn't believe me.
But she didn't push. Everyone around me seemed to thrive in the chaos. They fueled themselves with caffeine and competition. I ran on autopilot and shame. Until I couldn't anymore. The day I dropped out wasn't cinematic. There was no dramatic shouting. No monologue of defiance. Just a quiet email. Effective immediately, "I will not be continuing in the program. Thank you for the opportunity." I stared at the screen for a long time before hitting send. And then silence. I didn't cry.
I didn't breathe.
I just stared at my reflection in the black screen, wondering what I had just done to my life. I drove home, the next morning, back to Oak Haven, back to the house with the porch swing and the perfectly trimmed hedges, back to the version of me they thought still existed. When I walked in, no one hugged me. Mom looked up from folding laundry. Dad glanced over his reading glasses. "You're early," he said. "I'm done," I said quietly. The air stiffened. "Done with what?" Mom asked. "Law school." The silence that followed wasn't just heavy. It was final. They didn't yell. They didn't ask questions. They didn't ask if I was okay. Just. "She's just taking a break," Mom said to Aunt Diane a few days later on the phone. "We don't talk about that anymore," Dad muttered when a neighbor asked why I was back in town. They weren't angry. They were ashamed. And I became invisible. I started sleeping until noon. Avoiding mirrors. Avoiding people. The pressure to prove something, to fix something was enormous. But I didn't even know what I believed in anymore. I tried applying to jobs. Got ghosted by most. One offered me $13 an hour to scan receipts at a tax office. I declined. Politely. That made it worse at home. I could hear them talking through thin walls. "What's her plan?" "She doesn't have one." "We did everything right. Where did we go wrong?" Every dinner felt like performance art. Pass the peas.
Smile. Pretend.
Swallow. Not just food, but feelings. Ethan stopped inviting me to his college events. Mom stopped asking how I was doing. Dad just stopped talking. The worst part? I didn't blame them. I blamed me. I blamed the part of me that had dreams no one understood. The part that questioned the system instead of playing by its rules. I blamed the girl who loved writing poetry more than legal briefs. The girl who saw people, not arguments. But in the Carter household, feelings didn't matter. Function did.
Achievement did.
And I had none to show. I remember once overhearing Mom on the phone again. She had so much potential. But I don't know what happened. Maybe she'll come around. She has to. We can't afford to have that kind of daughter. That kind. That word echoed. That was who I had become. That kind. So I started over. Not out loud. Not in bold strokes or sweeping declarations. Just quietly. I stopped trying to fix the narrative. I stopped trying to make them proud. And instead, I asked myself, what if I just wanted to feel okay again? Not admired. Not accepted.
Just okay.
So I picked up my laptop. I opened a blank document. And I started writing. Not a resume. Not a statement of purpose.
Just thoughts. Pain. Hope.
Curiosity. Things that had been buried beneath law books and family expectations. It wasn't a comeback.
Not yet.
But it was a beginning. The world didn't cheer. My family didn't notice. But I was breathing again. And for the first time in months, I felt like I was still here. It was the tiniest act of rebellion. But to me, it was sacred. That's where the rebuilding would begin. Not with a degree. Not with a job title. But with a whisper to myself. I'm still in here. I wish I could say I woke up one morning full of purpose. Like the movies. Like something clicked, and suddenly I knew what I was meant to do.
But no. It was smaller than that.
It was a flyer. Half wrinkled, hanging crookedly on the community bulletin board near the grocery store. Digital literacy volunteers needed. Oak Haven Public Library. I don't know why I stopped to look. Maybe it was the word needed. Maybe I just didn't want to go home yet. Either way, I took a picture of it. And for the first time in weeks, I felt a flicker. Not hope. Not excitement. Just curiosity. The next day I showed up. Jeans, t-shirt, no expectations. The library smelled like old paper and carpet cleaner. Comforting and forgotten, like a part of town time skipped. They assigned me to the back room computer lab for seniors. 6 desktops. 10 folding chairs. 1 whiteboard with the word passwords underlined 3 times. Just help them feel less scared of the screen, the librarian whispered with a tired smile. I nodded. I didn't know what I was doing.
But neither did they.
Her name was Mrs. Davis. First student. 83 years old. bright blue eyes behind giant glasses, and a purse full of peppermint candies. "This machine hates me," she muttered, jabbing the power button like it owed her money. I sat beside her.
Softly.
"It's just sleeping," I smiled. "Let's wake it up together." She eyed me, suspicious, hopeful.
Click. Whir.
Desktop came to life. Her mouth dropped open. "Well, I'll be." Teaching her how to check email took an hour. Reading an email took another. But when she opened a message from her daughter in Arizona, with a picture of her newborn grandson, her hands trembled. "That's my baby's baby," she whispered. And then she cried. Right there in the glow of the screen, she cried. She hugged me, without asking. "You brought my baby into my living room." That moment? That was it. That was the first breath of something that mattered. Not headlines. Not prestige. Just humanity. Something I hadn't felt in years. I kept showing up. Every Tuesday and Thursday. The computer lab filled with stories. A retired postman who wanted to start a blog. A widower learning Zoom to see his grandkids. A woman who ran a small crochet business and wanted to sell on Etsy. They came in with fear. They left with light. And in that lab, where no one knew my GPA or cared about my dropout status, I found something real. Connection. At first, I treated it like penance, a way to earn back some invisible value I'd lost. But soon it became something else. I started tracking their progress. I made my own mini curriculum. I created a feedback sheet. I even brought cookies one day. It sounds small.
It was.
But it wasn't meaningless. It was sacred. And slowly, word spread. By month 3, the librarian asked if I'd consider running a Saturday group. I agreed. I set up a Facebook page. Silver Clicks. Tech for every age. I made Canva flyers. Taught myself how to use MailChimp. Began documenting little wins. Each story felt like a pebble in a growing pile. No one paid me. No one really noticed. But it felt like I had found a new language. One built on kindness, patience, presence. Then came the request from the city's community office. Someone from the mayor's staff had heard about the sessions from their grandmother. She said you gave her the world back. They wanted to feature Silver Clicks in a monthly newsletter. I laughed when I read the email. It felt so unreal. I wasn't anybody. I wasn't successful. I was just a girl who messed up her life and was now handing out mouse pads to seniors. But I said yes. They sent a photographer. Took a few pictures of me helping Mr. Patel reset his email. They asked questions. "What's your background?" I paused. Law school dropout didn't roll off the tongue quite right. So I said, "Just someone who believes learning never stops." They nodded. Wrote that down. I didn't tell my family, not because I was hiding it, but because they never asked. Every conversation still hovered around Ethan's promotions. My cousin Emily's engagement. Uncle Roger's retirement party. I became good at smiling. Nodding. Changing the subject. Still figuring things out, I'd say. And they'd nod. Pity painted across their faces. No one asked where I went on Tuesdays and Thursdays, or why I kept peppermint candies in my purse.
But I didn't need them to ask.
Not anymore. The lab had become my world. Every aha moment from a confused senior. Every shared laugh over a typo. Every soft thank you from someone who felt seen again. It fed me. One day, Mrs. Davis brought me a scarf she knitted herself. "For the girl who gave me back my voice," she said. "I still wear it. Every winter. Every time I forget my worth." And so the rebuilding continued. Not in shouts, but in whispers. Not in recognition, but in meaning. It didn't make headlines, but it mattered. It mattered deeply. And that was enough to keep going. I used to think success came with confetti, with applause, with someone saying your name into a microphone. But that's not how it happened. Not for me. My success came with Google Sheets, bulk email subscriptions, and a community center that forgot to refill the coffee pot. It started with a spreadsheet, just a place to track attendance and topics. Then it grew into something more. Within 6 months, Silver Clicks had over 80 active participants. 3 weekly sessions. 2 new volunteers. We were onboarding over 1,200 seniors per month through mini tech clinics across Oak Haven and neighboring towns. I taught workshops in church basements, in tiny libraries with flickering lights, in VFW halls that smelled like dust and decades. No stage, no spotlight, just old laptops, smiles, and purpose. The stats began to stack up. Our newsletter had a 78% open rate, higher than some Fortune 500 companies. Our digital PDF handouts were being downloaded by senior centers across the state. I created a 10-part video series on YouTube called Email Basics for Grandma that quietly hit 20,000 views. No monetization, no SEO strategy, just real need, real help. People were listening, but the people I needed most to notice still didn't. I'd mention silver clicks at dinner. Mom would nod distractedly. Dad would sip his tea. My brother Ethan once chuckled, teaching old folks to click buttons? Real noble work. And that stung. Not because I needed validation, but because I wanted acknowledgement. Just a moment. Just one pause where someone said, "Hey, that's actually kind of amazing." But that moment never came. At family gatherings, I became the quiet one. The one who brought pie, asked about everyone else, and offered to clean up. Cousin Emily would show off her fiancé. Uncle Roger would dominate the living room with stories of courtrooms and verdicts.
Me?
I'd sit near the kids.
Or sneak outside to breathe.
I remember overhearing Ethan once tell a friend, "She's always been the free spirit. Still figuring things out." Still, I had built something. Something real. Something measurable. But in their eyes, I was still the one who gave up. One evening, I stood in front of a room of 60 seniors in a refurbished high school gym. Projector humming. My voice echoing over the mic. We were teaching online safety. Passwords. Phishing. 2-step verification. I looked out at the sea of gray hair and eager eyes and realized. They see me. They're not comparing me to anyone. They're not checking boxes I didn't ask for. They trust me. They learn from me. And that felt more fulfilling than any courtroom when I could have had. But that night, after the applause and cleanup, I came home to silence. No one to ask how it went. No text from Mom. No voicemail from Dad. Just me. And a leftover casserole. I sat there, fork in hand, wondering, why does it still hurt when the people you love pretend you're invisible? Why does it still matter? It took time to realize. I wasn't chasing success. I was chasing recognition. I had been conditioned to believe that success only counted if it was seen, if it made someone else proud. But slowly, I was unlearning that. I was learning to measure value by impact, not impressions. One morning, I opened my inbox and found a message from a nonprofit in Michigan. They had found my workshop materials online, asked if they could adapt them for their elderly immigrant community. "Your tone is warm, gentle, empowering," the email said. "We've never found anything like it." I said yes. Of course. Then came a request from a public library in Oregon. Then a senior center in Florida. Silver Clicks had become more than a local workshop. It was becoming a movement. And I was still the same girl in jeans and coffee-stained shirts, doing it all from a borrowed desk in the back of Oak Haven Library. We applied for a small grant. We got it. $5,000. I cried when the check came, not because of the money, but because someone out there believed this mattered. And that belief? That was everything. Still, I didn't mention it at home. I tried once. Over dinner. "We got a grant," I said quietly, "to expand the digital literacy program." "That's nice," Mom said, slicing into her roast chicken. Dad didn't look up. Silence again. And yet I didn't feel small this time. I just felt separate. Like they were reading a different chapter of my life than the one I was actually living. And maybe that was okay. I still kept every thank you note. Every drawing from a grandkid that said, "Thanks for teaching, Nana Zoom." I taped them to my bedroom wall like badges of honor. Because I was proud. Quietly.
Deeply.
Even if the people who raised me couldn't see it.
And you know what?
That became enough. Not right away. Not all at once. But slowly, I stopped performing for their applause and started thriving in the silence. I didn't need the loud kind of success. I needed the real kind. The kind you feel in your chest when someone says, "You made a difference."
It was a Tuesday.
One of those ordinary, in-between days, where nothing spectacular was supposed to happen. The air smelled like fall. Crisp, a little burnt, a little sweet. I had just wrapped a session at the Oak Haven Rec Center, teaching a dozen seniors how to organize digital photos. I packed up my laptop, smiled at the usual "see you next week" chorus, and headed to the coffee shop on Main Street. I wasn't meeting anyone. It was just part of the ritual now, rewarding myself with a chai latte and 30 minutes of pretending I wasn't rebuilding a revolution from a laptop that wheezed when it opened PowerPoint. I took a corner seat, opened my inbox, started sifting through messages. That's when I heard it. A voice from the next table. She cried when she saw the Zoom icon, the woman said. I froze. It was the way she said it. A kind of reverence.
Soft awe.
I glanced sideways. She was mid-30s, wearing a navy coat, red scarf, talking to a man across from her, probably her brother by the way they leaned in with the same forehead crinkle. She hadn't seen her son in 4 years, the woman continued, pulling out her phone. Now they talk every Saturday. The man smiled, half teasing. Did you set it up for her? She laughed. No, it was this program. Something with a clever name. Click something? My heart thudded. The man blinked. Silver clicks. Yes, she snapped her fingers. That's it. The community center in Oak Haven runs it. Some volunteer runs the whole thing. I swear, she changed my mother's life. My throat tightened. I didn't move. Didn't breathe.
They were talking about me.
I waited. I didn't want to interrupt. I just sat there, letting the words soak in. The woman kept talking. She got my mom on email, then WhatsApp. She even helped her order a sweater online. It's wild, Eric. She's not scared of the internet anymore. The man shook his head, impressed. That's actually amazing.
Pause.
I wonder who runs it. And that's when I knew. The moment was mine to step into, or to let float by unclaimed. My heart was pounding, but something quiet, something calm, rose up in me. I stood up, turned around. Hi, I said softly. They looked at me. I couldn't help overhearing.
Sorry.
You were talking about silver clicks. The woman blinked, smiled.
Yes.
Do you know it? I nodded. My name's Claire. I started it. Silence. Her eyes widened. You're Claire? I nodded again. She stood up so fast her chair scraped the floor. You're the one who taught my mom? Oh my God, Claire. I've been trying to find you. She hugged me, right there in the coffee shop, with strangers watching. She told me her mom was one of my first attendees, that she had gone from fearful to fearless, that she had FaceTimed her grandson for the first time last week. She told me, this girl at the library showed me, said I could learn anything. I swallowed the lump in my throat. The man, Eric, stood up next, shook my hand. I hope you know what you're doing is important, he said. Not nice, not cute, not noble. Important. That word landed deep. We sat and talked for 15 more minutes. They asked how I started it, where the idea came from, why I kept going. I told them the truth, that it wasn't planned, that I was broken once, that teaching others helped me rebuild myself. The woman smiled, misty-eyed. Do you ever do interviews? I work in media. You should be seen, Claire. I laughed, a little embarrassed. I've spent so long being invisible, I don't even know how to think about being seen. But even as I said it, something shifted. I walked home that evening in silence. Not because I didn't want to talk, but because something sacred had settled inside me. They didn't know my resume, didn't care about my GPA, didn't ask if I'd graduated. They saw me, my work, my impact. Without me even raising my hand, the truth walked in by itself, sat at the next table, and said my name out loud. Not because I demanded attention, but because the truth refused to stay quiet. That night, I lit a candle, sat by my bedroom window. I thought about all the dinners where no one asked what I was building, all the free spirit comments, all the ways I'd swallowed my pride just to stay soft.
But now?
I didn't feel bitter. I felt powerful, because my worth didn't depend on their recognition anymore. It had found its own way, through a stranger, in a coffee shop, on a Tuesday. The recognition didn't come with fireworks. No parades. No viral tweet. Just a ripple. A gentle wave that started in that coffee shop and made its way into parts of my life I thought were sealed off for good. It started with an envelope, cream-colored, handwritten, from my mother. I recognized her delicate cursive even before I opened it. Inside, a short note. Claire, I heard about silver clicks from a woman at church. She said you changed her sister's life. I'm sorry I haven't said this sooner, but I see it now. Love, Mom. That was all. No grand apology. No confessional essay. But it was more than enough. Then came a voicemail from Ethan.
Short.
Awkward.
Hey.
So apparently the mayor's office gave a shout out to this senior tech program, said it was helping reduce digital isolation. And, someone told me you're behind it.
So yeah.
That's cool.
Proud of you.
I guess I didn't get it before. He hung up before I could process what he said. I played it back twice. Not for validation, but because it felt like the door had finally cracked open. Not wide, but open. A week later, Dad asked if I'd help him sign up for an online class. He didn't say the words, didn't offer explanations, just handed me his tablet and muttered, "You're the expert." I smiled and took it, because sometimes healing doesn't come with confessions. It comes in the quiet choice to trust again. Something inside me had shifted, not because they saw me, but because I had finally stopped needing them to. It wasn't pride, it was peace. I no longer carried my worth like a presentation, hoping someone would finally clap. I carried it like breath.
Steady.
Unannounced. Unapologetic. The city posted an article on their community board. Local program connects generations through technology.
They didn't name me in the headline.
But halfway down the page, there it was. Founded by Claire Whitmore, SilverClicks has quietly empowered over 6,000 seniors in the past year. I took a screenshot. Not to show anyone. Not to print. Just to keep. Just to remember that even quiet revolutions leave footprints. The library asked if I'd consider turning SilverClicks into a permanent offering. Not just a workshop. A department. A funded initiative. I said yes. Then cried in the staff bathroom for 10 minutes. Because it felt real now. Not just a patchwork solution I created out of grief and curiosity, but a legacy. Something that would last. Something built from the ruins of rejection. One afternoon, a little girl came up to me after a session. She was maybe 7. Her grandmother had brought her. She held up a crayon drawing, me with long hair, holding a laptop with hearts floating out. "You helped my Nana talk to me on the computer," she said proudly. I knelt to her level. "What's your name?" "Isabel." I smiled.
Thank you, Isabel.
"That's the best picture I've ever received." She beamed. Skipped away. I folded the drawing carefully and put it in my bag. I didn't need to frame it. I just needed to carry it. The wall in my room was still covered in notes. New ones kept joining the old. Postcards, thank you emails, sticky notes from volunteers. Not one was signed by a relative, but each one felt like family. Chosen family. Grateful strangers. Real people who saw me. Not for what I had failed to become, but for what I had actually built. Sometimes, I still think about that old version of me, curled up in bed after leaving law school, ashamed, isolated, convinced I had ruined the blueprint of my life. If I could go back, I wouldn't hand her a 5-step plan. I'd just sit next to her, hold her hand, and whisper, "You don't need to rebuild what broke. You're about to build something entirely new."
And now?
When people ask what I do, I don't fumble. I don't shrink. I look them in the eye and say, I help people reconnect with the world, one click at a time. If you've ever been told you were a disappointment, that you embarrassed your family, that you took the wrong path, that you lost your way, then this story was for you. Because I know what it's like to be the what happened to her in the family group chat. The subject they skip over at dinner. The person whose name draws silence instead of pride. I know what it's like to carry potential like a curse. To be gifted, capable, passionate. But unacceptable because your dreams didn't follow a straight line. They said, I embarrassed the family.
But now?
The mayor knows my name. Funny, isn't it? The same girl they whispered about is now the one strangers think in grocery stores. The same daughter who took a break is now the founder of something that heals people every day. But here's what I've learned. Recognition means nothing if you don't recognize yourself. Respect from others won't save you if you don't respect your own voice. It's not about proving them wrong. It's about living right by yourself. So maybe you're still in the in-between. Maybe you haven't had your coffee shop moment yet. The one where a stranger unknowingly affirms your worth. That's okay. The world doesn't always applaud at the right time. Sometimes you have to become your own ovation. If no one's told you lately, you're allowed to start over. You're allowed to dream differently. You're allowed to matter without having a title, a following, a name in the lights. You don't have to wait for permission to become the person you already are. You don't need a stage to be seen. Sometimes, the quiet work is the most radical. And if someone you love has made you feel small, here's your reminder. Your spirit isn't broken. It's just been buried under other people's expectations. But it's still glowing, still breathing, still yours. I built Silver Clicks without a business degree, without a roadmap, without approval. I built it out of grief, out of love, out of stubborn hope. And I'll keep building. Because someone, somewhere, is waiting to feel seen. Maybe that someone is you. So, now I want to hear your story. Where are you watching from? What have you rebuilt when no one was clapping? Drop it in the comments. Not for likes, but for healing. Because when you share your story, you remind someone else they're not alone. On this channel, we believe in second chances. We honor the quiet victories. We celebrate the humans who refuse to stay invisible. If you're still becoming, still battling self-doubt, still walking the road back to yourself, you're exactly who this space is for. Thank you for listening, for feeling, for being here. There are more real stories to come, more voices to rise. Until next time, stay soft, stay strong, and remember, your story isn't over yet.